Good morning and welcome everyone. Super happy to have you all. I'm going to get started right away and we're going to talk about what we've been doing and what we plan on doing with Liquidsoap. And so I did something I never do, which is I have a plan that I'm showing you. So yeah, we'll do with general updates. Then we'll review what's coming up in the next release. Then we'll talk about what we hope we can get to after that, and we'll open the floor for questions because one thing I'm about to say a lot through that presentation and hopefully through the day is that we really, really appreciate feedback from users. It really helps us understand. We have been doing radio and broadcast, but we're not fully, into business on all sides of it. And sometimes we just don't understand what the priorities are, what our people needs, and how they use the software. So everything that informs us of it is really well appreciated. So one of the things we did this year is we went to FODSEM for the second time since before the pandemic. And I think that we're going to try to make it a regular thing. It was really good to meet in person, particularly Gilou and the people at Radio Campus. And so, I'm not sure, but I would say very likely next year, if you all want to join and come meet us, we probably will be there. So we talk about the integration with FFmpeg, which I'm not going to talk about today. I'm going to be more general. But yeah, one thing that was great is that we are seeing community around the software, and this is something that is really important for us because although this presentation is going to be very technical, I think that the real beauty of technology and especially media and especially open source streaming that is outside of, the largest platform is to connect people and to get to know each other, which we're doing here. So yeah, I like to start with this graph. It cracks me up every time. This is the peak of the pandemic here. So we took a little hit at the beginning because everyone was online and trying to recreate the social link we were missing, and then it went back to kind of normal. But the thing that really is amazing for us is that, which is the number of people that are following the project on GitHub. And there was one peak here for Liquidsoap 2.0 when we released. And then this one happened last week, I think, and we didn't really know what it is, but it shows us that there's a lot of interest. We had about 100 people that day, 64, 70, I forgot. All I was able to do is look at the analytics from GitHub, and I found this link here that had about 3K unique views that peaked on the same day. And then I click on the link, and it was another very nice radio project that I didn't know about. So I don't know what happened. I don't know why is that them? I'm not sure. But the reason I want to mention that story, first of all, that's a really cool project, and there are so many of them that we don't know about. And second is yes, we're always looking for understanding better the different use of the software. So community growth for us, how it looks like. We're very, very happy to see a lot of use in very, very different ways, being audio, video, streaming, etc. And we want to keep expanding. But we got to say, we're still in dire need of help. The development team is a team of two, Samuel and myself. We've had some help recently. There's a user who helped with the CI on actions. But yes, we really could use more, at least for the future as well, because the question we need to ask ourselves is where is the project in 5 years, 10 years? And if it's only relying on two people, it could potentially be a problem. And we also understand that in the world of radio and broadcast, a lot of people are not programmers, and especially for us, because the software is based on OCaml, it's not necessarily a very easy one to get into. But there are other ways to do. Like we have this awesome user Vito on GitHub, and I'm not even sure if he's here because I don't see him on the chat, but he's been doing really excellent job following up with users, writing up reproduce tests, ways to reproduce a bug and sending that back to us for fixing. That really helps a lot. Also, I'd say user experience feedback, telling us how to use the software, and knowledge spread. which is, how to share information and how it works so that everybody can contribute. So one thing I've started doing recently, typically, is being very verbose in the pull request. And what I'm hoping with that, frankly, is that whoever wants to pick up some code at some point or participate in a project could use that as a basis for understanding what the intent. If you're a coder, you know that sometimes your code is supposed to do something, but it does something else. So adding a little bit of context can help people seeing what really the intent of the programming was. That's for contributing to the code. We also started a blog because frankly, since the social media took over, I've been missing the blog era a lot. And I also think it's nice to share things that are not necessarily suitable for the full documentation, but are interesting, like special things that some users request that end up being an interesting script. That blog is fed by Sam and myself, but there's no reason to not have more contributor. It's pretty easy to do. It's just a markdown static content. So if you're interested, we'd love to have some contribution. Now, that being said, we want to spread knowledge and we want to leave breadcrumbs around for people to be able to pick up what they need to learn, either from a user perspective or from a developer or from anything. So one of the things that we've been postponing too much that I think we're going to announce today is that we're going to all move to Discord. Starting, I guess now, the Discord has been around for a while. And the reason is because a couple of things. First of all, Discord is open source friendly. And so, yep, Gilou?
Sorry, I just wanted to give a thumbs down for Discord, but I missed my cue. Sorry.
We'll talk about it in the question. So why Discord? First of all, I don't like changing things too much, and it's really annoying. We have over 500 on Slack. Why Discord? Well, first of all, it's open source friendly, and frankly, my opinion on open source is a bit fluid and tolerant. Like I'm going to talk later that we have a native stereo tool support, and it's not an open source project. Fine, but I am personally very upset that Slack is not even offering a free plan for open source projects. It's a platform that's built on open source. It's the same thing, GitHub, people can criticize the fact that the code is not open, but at least open source projects have a free space to use it. And to me, it's just insulting, to speak plainly. But also because there's no plan for open source, the chat history disappears. And that is our main problem here, that we support users, we give them detailed answers, and then 3 months later that thing is gone and nobody can research it and kind of use it. And that's the main reason I think the move is interesting. And the last thing, and maybe let's talk about it in the questions later, that is still a non-clear answer for me, is that whether or not it's accessible. And we know that especially in the world of radio, we want to be accessible to people with screen readers, to anyone in this situation. And so that's the last thing for us that is not clear. We know from user experience that IRC is the most accessible. I don't know. But Discord at the moment is the move. We'll see how far we can go with it. I just want to move away from a platform that doesn't facilitate open source projects at the moment. All right, so let's move to the second phase of that talk and talk about what we've been doing since the last release of 2.1. This is again, I'm making a plan. I'm talking ahead so we can anticipate. We switched to Dune and OPAM, which I'm going to talk about. We separate the language core and the standard library thanks to the switch to Dune and OPAM again. We created a workflow of rolling release. That was taking we learned that from Azure ICAS from last year, actually. We reworked the HTTP server and SSL TLS support. We add stereo tool native support. So this one I'm not going to talk in detail, but you can go over to the blog or the documentation. Stereo tools has a share library that can be used now as a native operator. It's much better experience than what we were doing with an external process. It integrates, it works great, and we really hope it's going to help people move to Liquidsoap or just use it more natively. And that's the biggest one that I'm going to talk the longer part. We added multi-track support, which is support to having two audio tracks and one video track, but also pushing down the abstraction of what media content is, especially with metadata and track marks. And I'll explain that also. So let's talk about Dune and OPAM first. So up until 2.1, we were using the old configure make script, makefile scripting to build. And we've moved to Dune and OPAM. So what has happened in the world of OKML in the past 5 or 10 years is that a couple of serious players have come to the ecosystem and started developing really advanced tooling around the language. And that really changed the game with the OKML world. In the past, it used to be pretty difficult to install one external dependency, to maintain its version, to recompile it when it needs to be recompiled. And those tools really just propels the language into a much better space where it's on par with what you see with PEEP on Python or NPM with Node, etc., etc. And progressively, we've seen all our dependency move to that workflow, and it was kind of natural for us to also adopt it. So what do we have here? We have two things. Dune is the builder. It replaces the makefile. So when you want to download the code and build a local version, you basically type Dune and it builds for you. It has its own syntax for building, and it's native to OKML, which is great for us. OPAM is the package manager. So if I'm on Mac and I want to install Liquidsoap, I can install the package manager and say OPAM install Liquidsoap, and it will take care of resolving all the dependencies with the right version. It also, part of the reason we really wanted to adopt it is because it has an excellent management of external dependencies. So that's something that's always been a nightmare for us because we have so many libraries that are required. So, libvorbis, libog, libmpitra, lame, and all that. So OPAM actually knows for your given system, whether it's Mac, Ubuntu, Fedora, what package it needs to install on the system to build that external dependency. And that really just gives us a unified platform where we can tell users just install through OPAM. It will take care of things for the most part, 90%. Yeah, and we've been very happy with it. The cons about it, though, is that by design, OPAM installs into a local path. It's not installed system-wide. It's kind of a trend. If you look at Node packaging, it does the same on a local Node folder. It's very convenient to wipe out an install, reinstall. It just makes it hard to integrate system-wise. So if you're like a DevOps person and you want to deploy Liquidsoap to multiple servers, this is not a very convenient path, and we're aware of it. One thing that we do for that is that we ship Debian packages, and we hope that can help as well. So yeah, we separated the language core. I'm going to try to be mindful of time, so this is going to be a little bit faster. What we did is that we realized that Liquidsoap is a language of its own, even before the streaming, and it should be able to compile as a scripting language independently of everything that's audio and video. So that's what we did, and we compiled it to JavaScript for testing. For now, we don't have a lot of use for it, but in the future, first of all, conceptually, it's important for us to clean up the code and know exactly the parts that are relevant to each section. And now you have a very expensive 3.5 megabyte JSON parser re-implemented in JavaScript, which already does it. But anyway, we hope to use that, or at least that it can be useful in some situations in the future. Rolling release is the page we took from Azure Acast. So first of all, let's talk about the versioning that we do. It's semantics, but it's not exactly what people do for semantic version. Part of the reason is that Liquidsoap is more a framework than a library. It's merely impossible for us to maintain backward compatibility or guaranteed backward compatibility because sometimes a bug fix needs to change a behavior that's pretty complex on certain operators. And it's just there's too many combined use to guarantee any of that. So what we do is we have a major version here. It has changed twice in 15 years. So it really changed when we change a big, large paradigm. But this is the number you want to see, which is the release cycle. At the beginning of every release cycle, we're going to start adding things that really break or change fundamentally the software. And then once the 2.1.0 is released, we're going to try very hard to minimize the change on every bug fix release. But we still absolutely recommend to try a bug fix release on some sort of staging or, pre-prod environment so that you can make sure it still works the way you intend to. And to facilitate that, we took a page from the book from AzureCast, and we decided to provide rolling releases, which are IRLBs for testing and rollout planning. They are exactly the same as the final production one, but they're not officially released. And also, we wanted to make sure that we solve two problems, which is we want the release page to have single links, but sometimes we want to keep previous release assets for continuity. So if you want your system to be deployed across many servers, you want to point to a URL that's not going to change, or the MD5, the checksum is not going to break. So we wanted to solve both problems. So the way we did is that we have a main rolling release that's on the GitHub/7net/Liquidsoap. And as I say, the assets in this release can be deleted and changed. And if you look at the list of assets, they're going to be here, prefixed with a little hashtag, SHA checksum that allows you to track uniquely which one you're looking at. And if you want to keep the assets, we have a separate repository called Liquidsoap release assets, where this one will contain all the previous one. And so if you're using a system that's is pushing to different servers and you want to maintain a permanent link, you can pull a link from that, and we guarantee that this one is not going to be deleted. As you can see here, there are several of them. We also do that on Docker. So you see with its tag. So this tag here is going to change to point to the latest one, but this tag here is going to always point to a previous one, which you can use as well. And we really hope that this helps everyone smoothly integrate Liquidsoap different versions and test them in advance. We reworked the HTTP stack. Again, I'm going to go fast on that, but we understand that communicating with your online radio is very important to dynamically change it or export and import data. The old stack was pretty old and a little bit confusing, I think. So this is inspired by the Node Express API. It gives you a very simple request response, and you can very quickly send a JSON and an HTML content. Boom, you're done. Should be easy. We also reworked the SSL. Before that, there used to be multiple operators like input.arbor.ssl, blah, blah, blah. There's now a single one. You just can pass an abstract transport that's going to change it between plain HTTP or HTTPS. It should also be making it more convenient. More documentation online if you want to read more. And also, if the documentation is not good, please report to us. So I'm coming to the main part of the talk. It's the multi-track support. And what is it? It's a way to provide access to individual media tracks, multiple audios, multiple video, but it's also an abstraction for manipulating metadata and track marks. One of the feedback I got about this feature recently is that, most people just want one audio or just one audio and one video. It's not really for them. It's true, but for us, it really helps us understanding what we were doing inside the code, and also providing support for things that were previously a bit opaque, like how do you merge all the tracks, or how you do change the metadata on a source. So here's how that works in Liquidsoap. One thing to remember is that we are using outputs to drive content. So if you look at this code here, when we parse that, we're going to know that this output expects a source that has an audio track and a video track. And the typing is going to push it down to the single and say, I want this file to also have an audio track and a video track. Copy here is what we used to say, I want to actually not decode and re-encode. I want to remux, as we say technically. I want to extract the encoded data here and remux it in MKV. So the multi-track does the same. Oh yeah, and then that's how it looks in the log. By the way, other new feature, the logs have colors now. Makes it more readable, finally. So see, that's what you see in the logs. Requested content type, FFmpeg copy on audio video. That's what we get from the script from typing. Then the decoder inspects the file and says, hey, I have a video with that codec and an audio with that codec. And finally, we say, oh, we are able to decode the content type of that song, and this is the final type is a copy of AAC codec for audio and a copy of H.264 for video. The multitrack works pretty much the same, except instead of having just one audio and one video, you can put other tracks here. And what it's going to do is that in turns, it's going to ask that playlist to only send us two tracks that have two audio and one video. And every track here, or every file that doesn't have two audio and one video, will be rejected by the decoder. You could tell me that's not very convenient. It's a bit rigid. You know, most people will have playlists of audio only or audio only and want to add video to an audio, or maybe audio and video and want to add a second audio, a lot of things. So the next step is to provide a muxer demuxer, which is a way to extract tracks and recompose tracks. The first operator is the source.tracks. And this was made possible by Samuel's awesome module system that was introduced in 2.0 and expanded since. So if you ask the operator source.tracks on the source S to extract audio, video, metadata, and track marks, the typing system is going to know that this source needs every single one of these tracks, and then they'll be available in your script for further manipulation. And what is a track is basically the original source, but restricted to just audio content. So you can think of that as a little pair of the source S and the field, media field that you're interested in. And the metadata and track marks, as I was saying, are pretty special ones that are always present that you can use. So let's look at an example here. This is a playlist of files and a static image. We extract the audio, metadata, and track marks from the playlist. We extract the video track from the image, and then we remux that to get a source with the audio and that video here. And it's pretty cool, and that's something that people have been looking to do. But before we had like weird operators, now we can unify all that. Here's another thing you can do, which I was talking about, is that this basically extract the tracks from the source S. See this thing here? It just says, take the track marks and put it as this underscore variable, which I'm not going to use, and just keep the rest in tracks. And now remux the rest in a new source. What this is doing is dropping the track marks. It's basically doing what we called before a merge track. And that's just a way that's much more, at least in my opinion, fluid. You could also use the track marks in another source. That means that you could have a video and like slice it according to the marks of another source. It's pretty interesting. All right, I'm going to skip that because I'm running out of time. I'm also going to skip that because I'm running out of time, but there are conventions for naming because, you know, sometimes there's a variable here and we want to know that this is audio content. This is explained here, and all that is in the documentation for Multitrack. If you want more information, just go on the website. It's there, and that's just me making too many slides. Future work for Multitrack is supporting dynamically add a video track. What I would like to do is do it this way. Again, I'm going to go fast, but I would love to be able to pull the tracks and remux them and say, if the tracks has video, then put that. Otherwise, put a default video. It's not going to work. I don't know if we can do it. I'm not sure. I was looking at it yesterday. What we can do for now is a slightly different thing where we can take a URL, create a source with video, a source without video, which is going to drive the decoder here to try to decode a file with video and audio. If it doesn't work, it decodes just audio, and then we can add a default video, and we can add a fallback where the first source is the one with video, otherwise the default one, and use this experimental operator called source.dynamic that recreate the source at every track. And this is the current way you could use to have a playlist where if a file already has a video attached to it, then is the video used. Otherwise, you add a default one. And I know that Azuracast was looking to do something like that. Again, with more time, I would explain more, but I want some time to talk about the release. It's coming soon. We are doing bug fixes. We are looking at performance and regression, and we please welcome everyone to test and report and try to be on par with the previous release. There's going to be a little bit of performance hit, unfortunately, but I think mostly it should be great. So the roadmap for the next release, which is basically where we wish we can do everything that's awesome and in our head. The first one is the Liquidsoap book needs an update. It's been an awesome tool to help people learn. and the language has changed since then. And we thank everyone for their patience adapting to new version. But we know it needs to be updated, so we want to do that as soon as 2.2 comes out, especially because now we have multi-track. We've changed a lot of the thing. We want to rewrite the streaming loop and the clock implementation. So that is no concern for most people, but for us. But the software has been around for 15 years, and there are some choices that we made technically back then have been out of this expression of food gun, which is something you choose as a programmer, and you realize it just was a bad choice, and every step of the way you hurt yourself because it breaks, and we need to change that. So we have very strong ideas, but they need a full rewrite that's going to be in depth, and that is going to take a major release. One other thing we want to do is take advantage of Okumo 5, who can now do concurrency and multi-core. And so through that rewrite, we should be able to now encode video and see all the cores being used for it, which is kind of the case at the moment, but not as well as we would like to. Eventually, we also want a proper module support, because right now, if you want to include an external file, you use this directive. But if you ever played with it, it's a very low-level inclusion. It basically means it's the same as doing copy-paste of the file content into your script. And it doesn't provide, it's just not useful for a lot of things, in particular for reporting error lines, as some users discussed recently. What we want is something like that, which is, if you're familiar with Node, topically, it's like external module, you import a function, you define something, you re-export. This is going to give us a much better unified abstract view of everything. So you could have a string module and put all the function for string there. You could have a, I don't know, source module and put all the function for source there. But the other thing it's going to help us do is that we should be able to do the typing of this file ahead of time and store it and save it and not redo it. Because right now, when you start Liquidsoap, it parse and retypes the whole standard library, which has been awesomely growing recently, but it's becoming a pain point because it's taking too much time, which is the next thing we want to do is address standard library performance issue, which we're aware too. It takes too long to start the software. By having module, we should be able to cache the type and really make it way faster to start. Eventually, we also want to take a page from Okemo world and add more tooling. We are very, very heavily missing a prettier. I just don't want to have to indent my script all the time. I just want to run an automated tool that's going to make it beautiful. And I want syntax highlighting. So all that requires to change a little bit the way we parse the language, which also is a change that hopefully will come with the next release. All right. Sorry, I wanted to have more time for questions, but this is right on time, almost to the minute, the end of that talk.
Great, thank you very much, Romain. So, is there any questions? So there were quite a few on the chat, but I don't remember from the right now. So please ask them. Gilou, maybe you want to start?
Yeah. Well, it was in the chat, but I guess I didn't want to interrupt because that was kind of rude. Just about the part with the multi-tracks. I remember telling you that I don't need multi-track and whatever, and it's so that I'm going to need it for something interesting based on multiplexing audio channels and keeping them in sync and choosing the good one at the last moment possible. So I'm actually going to need it. So you were kind of right of just ignoring that. The part with the video and the audio multi-streams, I couldn't get at all. Like, it went so fast. I tried to reach, but I don't know about the others, but I guess it's going to require a special explanation or a blog article, whatever. I'm going to have to go through it, but thanks a lot. And thanks also for the stereo tool integration. Some people asked what it was about, so I tried to explain in the chat. So that's great. And it's going to be great. And I wanted to know if the track marks was something in the 2.2 version, because I don't remember because I haven't switched to that yet. So the notation the syntax was like totally new to me, so I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I had to go fast. It's only 30 minutes, but there is a doc online, and we're going to have a lot of recorded, tracked conversation history on the chat that people can refer to as well.
Someone asked about IPA fields. Pranas did that and I'm going to answer something, but maybe you can answer. there's a hook, like Panas, if he's asking about, or they're asking about Arbor security. And Arbor actually has a way for you to call another API, another program to authenticate. So that's how Shorja does it. Not spoiling what's going to happen later, but yeah, usually what you do is you just use Arbor and you made it ask for authentication for some using some other software.
Yeah, in general, Liquidsoap, I didn't talk about it, but for instance, HLS low latency, we probably won't be doing it because it's not a software that's supposed to be exposed to your end user. So security is a little bit less of a concern. It should really be limited to your DJs, specific IPs. If you have anything that's face fronting the internet, it should probably be having something in between them and Liquidsoap, like NJNIX or something, usually.
Yeah, I think that UN answered that as well, and I agree.